Hello, folks who are joining. We're going to give a few minutes so that everyone can get into the webinar, and then we'll get started. Hello, folks. If you're joining, we are giving our audience a few minutes to get settled in, grab a soda. I recommend the new Diet Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar Cream Soda. Highly recommend. And then we'll get started. Okay, I'm going to give about 2 more minutes. Oh, Dimitri, hello. Welcome. So glad to see you. Yeah, we're excited to show this as well. So glad you could make it. All right. Welcome, welcome, everybody. I'm so glad everyone could join us if you're live. And we'll also have a recording of this webinar we'll send to you afterwards. I'm being joined by Naman Ali, who is our product manager at Stoplight. Naman, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, so I'm Naman. I'm the product manager, primarily working on the Style Guide project that we're going to be showing you. So I'm really looking forward to showing you all this awesome feature that we've built.
Yeah, and so Naman will join us later for a demo, but I am Anna Doherty. I'm the product marketing manager at Stoplight. And so I'll be walking you through a few of the reasons why we've decided to focus on this feature and some of the problems we're hoping to solve with it. And then you'll get a sneak peek behind the scenes. If you have questions throughout, feel free to use the Q&A feature or put them in chat if that's easier for you. We have Bailey, who is monitoring the chat, and she'll make sure we get the questions available at the end for us to answer. So we're going to roll right into it. We don't want to take up too much of your time. So let's get started by clicking. All right. So some of you may find this redundant. Some of you may be joining us from a mature organization that you've got all your ducks in a row. You've got a style guide. You've got an understanding of how you want to run your API program already. But some of you maybe aren't there yet, or maybe you have a style guide and you're not really sure what to do with it. Well, we're trying to solve some of those problems. But the thing we recognize is that across every industry, across everywhere, people are striving to get consistency for their APIs. We've come to a place where now we realize that APIs are valuable, Organizations need them, they want to use them, but they're growing out of control. And it's much harder to find consistency and reliability and repeatability and reusability from their APIs. So that's what everyone's striving for right now. And there's a lot of questions about how to achieve that. So what's the problem here, right? Why do you need consistency? Because as your organization grows and as you scale, you'll build more APIs, both internally and externally. And you need to be able to, one, know what you have, and two, be able to manage them appropriately. And three, ensure that when you do socialize them or expose them to customers, that you have an entire picture of what your API program looks like, and that you know their quality. You know that what you're putting out there is consistent, reliable, secure, and adheres to your best practices in your organization. What does this do for you, right? If you establish this set of rules that determine what your API program will look like, what does consistency lead to? Prevents duplicate code, right? Duplicate is time wasted. You're wasting time across teams, you're wasting time across your business. You need that time. And when you duplicate code, you're just reinventing the wheel when you don't need to. Like I said, you can increase reliability. So you know what you're putting out into the market or what you're giving to your internal customers is going to help, right? Is going to be useful to them. You will improve developer experience. We're all striving for that too. So if it's like consistency is what we're all looking for, developer experience is the next top thing, right? We want our developers to be happy. We want the people who use our products to be happy and to come back to use them again and again. We want to speed up time to market, right? This is a market differentiator. If you can get your API product to the market faster, you also want it to be good. And the way to do that is to have a style guide that helps you adhere to standards you've set, increasing development time and getting you to market faster. And overall, you just want better APIs. That's the whole point of this. Consistency equals quality. So we're striving for that together across all industries in the API space. So how do you achieve consistency? We know from really great trusted people like Arnaud, the API handyman, Kin Lane over at Postman, everyone's talking about this, which is style guide. Our own Jason Harmon, the CTO at Stoplight, he's so intimately familiar with a style guide. It is the guideline that sets out those rules that we talked about. They should be easy to consume, and it should be a set of instructions that anyone in your organization can follow when they're making an API. It's that simple. But what should it include, right? So we know why it matters. It's going to create consistency. But what should a style guide include? It should have your design style and specification, authentication and authorization, right? It should be easy to understand what are your rules for those things. You should have conventions for endpoint naming. This is always a big problem we hear about. What should we name things? Let's come together and agree upon what those things should be. Error codes, versioning, what are your standards and formats that you have to use, and then specific industry and organizational standards that you, specific to your business, need to outline. What happens when you do that? When your API is delightful to use, adoption and retention increase. This is our goal. If you have a style guide that promotes consistency in your organization, consistency equals quality, quality equals money. We say money, but not everything is externalized, right? Even internally, you're using APIs to work within your organization with internal users. You still want them to be delighted and to have good experience at your organization. And when we say retention, we mean employee retention in that position. So let's go to see what a style guides kind of look like in the past, right? Where have they been? I know for a fact that some people on this very webinar are using Google Docs for their style guides. But this has been the industry practice, right? You write them or in Markdown or by hand, Or maybe you use the API style book reference to figure out how other people are doing style guides and copy them, right? That's fine. They're doing it best practices. That's an appropriate way to use the style guides for your own organization. And then in the left here, you'll see linting, right? So maybe you used a style guide linter in your lifecycle management, but it doesn't really outline your style guide. It's just linting against rules. We have a similar open source project, Spectral, that also lets you create rules and lint against them. But we wanted to take it a step further and bring Spectral's technological advancements higher into the business sense. How can we use Spectral to help you get consistency across your API program and not just each individual API design? What are the problems that came about when you were using style guides in these really difficult ways, right? If you're creating a style guide in a Google Docs, what was that doing for you? It was making it difficult to stay complete, up to date. It's difficult to manage. The handoff from one person to another is difficult because it lives outside of your workflow. It lives outside of the tooling that you use every day. It lives outside of the tooling developers use every day. And it's a manual effort to get your style guide in front of people. And it's a push and pull to get them to use it. So it's hard to stay up to date with it, right? If Open API specification particularly is always changing, how do you keep your style guide up to date? And how do you make sure that everyone in your organization is also up to date using the latest rules that you've set forth? Difficult. That's the pain we recognized. And that's why, now let's get to the good stuff. We are introducing style guide projects into Stoplight. Our goal with this is to make API consistency easier. We want you to be able to create, share, apply, and enforce and update your standards across all of your API design in all of your workspace. So you could choose a selection of designs to apply to everything. You could choose payments designs to apply to payments APIs. There's so much functionality that you can do with this. We're just going to give you a sneak peek of what's coming up today, but this is really exciting for us because we want to enable that consistency, reusability, and the dirty word governance at your organization in a much more delightful way. So let's see a little bit more, and then I'll introduce Noman for his demo in just a second. So what is the Style Guide project? So if you've ever used Stoplight, you know you create an API design project already. Now it's just as simple as creating a style guide project, just as simple, right? You've got the form editor for the API design. Similarly, you have a form editor for the style guide rule set. It allows you to create best practices or enable our best practices that we've already come up with to help you get started quickly without having to write your own rules. You absolutely can if you need to or want to, but we're trying to get you started right off the bat as quickly as we can, and then letting you customize as you need to. So what's next, right? If this is going to be a preview, when can you get your hands on this? What we're doing is we are rolling out style guide projects for all new workspaces beginning tomorrow. So if you sign up for a new workspace, you can get a preview of it, get your hands on it, start seeing what it's like to create a style guide project. And then in a few weeks, we'll be enabling it for all existing workspaces, but you can opt in now if you really, really want to give it a try. We just don't want to interrupt any of your existing workflows by introducing this new feature without giving you a chance to see it first, if you're an existing customer. So you should definitely reach out to us if you want it today. We'll enable it for you starting tomorrow. But yeah, we just don't want to interrupt anybody who's using Spectral or any design guidelines already. We want to make sure we do this in a way that is makes you happy and doesn't interrupt anything. But so you can test it out for free, or if you need the full functionality of being able to enable it and share it across your workspace, those features will be available in Pro and Enterprise level plans. So if you're already an existing Pro or Enterprise customer, you'll have access to all the features if you opt in. So Great, right? I'm excited to share this with y'all. It's been a really great endeavor that we've worked several months at, and we've been sort of dropping hints every now and then, but we're really excited about this feature, and we wanted to show you exactly who could benefit from using it. So on the left, we have sort of our API program managers, we're calling them. They could be architects, they could be product managers, product owners, really just the person who's in charge of creating, establishing, governing an API program at your organization. They can be the governance person, right? They can create the style guides, and then they can share them, socialize them, get feedback, collaborate. We want to make this as easy as possible to share. And then on the other side, we've got our engineers and our API designers, the people who are in there every day doing the work. We want them to not feel like they're disconnected or feeling like they have to adhere to every single rule or their API won't go through, right? We want this to be collaborative. So we give you the opportunity to create warnings or the chance to review together the API designs so that they can get their API designs through without feeling like they're being creatively squashed, because that's the last thing we want for a developer. We want them to feel like they're part of the entire workflow and to enjoy working in our tool and not, find it painful. So yeah, both of these groups, we have thought long and hard about how they'll use these things. And we also did an early access with a few customers who might be on this call right now. And they really enjoyed this set of features. So here's one from the head of API at a platform that is a payments platform. They said, I really like the customization and that you can create smart suggestions for the schema. The more people who use OpenAPI, the more who remember it. But as it changes, it can be hard to keep up. I like the ability to maintain best practices. This is another of the core things. If your style guides are easy to maintain and easy to enable and easy to adhere to, that solves so many ding dang problems for a lot of people. All right, now we're gonna get into the good stuff, which is, I know, the stuff you actually wanted to see. And we're gonna let Noman here take over the screen. So I'm gonna switch off, and Noman, you can share. And in the meantime, do we have any questions to add to the chat? If so, we'll make sure they're answered during this demo.
Thank you, Anna. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see. Go for it.
Perfect. All right. So just picking up from where Anna left, Anna talked to you about two primary personas that we built this feature for. One's this API program manager who's building out style guides, and then the other is the API consumer or the API designer who's using these style guides and adhering to these standards by applying these style guides. I'm going to start off with showing off the workflow for the API program manager. And for that, let's just, Anna touched on it a bit. We've always had API design projects, but now we have a new kind of a project, which is a style guide project. So once you click this Add Project screen, now you'd see an option. It's either create an API or design an API, which is just going to take you to the previous experience of creating open APIs, adding models and stuff. But there's this new thing called style guides. Once you click on it, it's a similar screen. You give it a project name. So I'm going to give it this awesome style guide that I'm going to create. The visibility for it is just showing some changes that are. The visibility is just internal right now. So it's going to be visible to all your workspace members. There's no way to make it public. Maybe in the future, we'll take it there for folks who want to share it across companies, maybe make their style guide public for others to use. But right now it's going to be internal. But you can choose who you give access to edit these style guides. So it can just be those small set of folks who create and maintain those standards. You can also create a special group so that it's easy to find these style guides, maybe have a few other documents there, like documents on reusability and stuff. So I've created a governance group here. I'll add it there. And once I create a style guide, it'll take you to this new UI, which is completely built from scratch for just building out style guides. Now, what is here? We start off with a default style guide that Stoplight provides, which has a few set of rules and other things. I'll dwell on that a bit. So it's enabled by default, and you can either choose to use it completely or change it around. But what you're primarily looking to do is get started by these standards that are already given by Stoplight, but also create your own rules. So let's say I want to create a new rule. Then what kind of rules do I want to create? Like it's they're pretty easy, but let's say we want to enforce casing onto our parameters. So I'd say my query parameters always need to be camel case. For that, I'll give it a name, give it a method. So let's say query parameter must be camel case. Now I've given, there are a few things that you can use in this, like the description of the rule or the property name, just to make the message more clear. The next thing that you can do is add a description. This is important for documentation purposes. So if users are looking at these style guides, they can see examples. You can use Markdown here. So I'll just put in an example here, make it bold so that people know. And you'd see that in the documentation, it would appear. I'll talk about the documentation later too. Now, I want to, so this rule is intended to target query parameters, make them camel case. We have a list of targets that we already provide by default. We're going to keep building on these, but it makes it easy for you to target specific parts of the OpenAPI specification without having to, for people who have used Spectral, it required JSON paths, writing those long JSON paths, which are pretty hard to maintain and figure out. You can choose, like, if I want to target responses, I can choose that. In this case, I want to target query parameters, so I'll just choose that. And in the, I want to make their names, target the names particularly. So this targets query parameters in general, and I can say I just want the name to be targeted for this rule. I have a few set of functions that are provided by Spectral by default, like, do you want to define casing or do you want them to be alphabetical? In this case, I want to enforce casing, so I'll choose that. And I want it to be camel. So this is the time it took from deciding what rule I want to create to actually creating it. Now, say I want to do the same for headers, and in that case, I want it to be snake case. I'll just duplicate this one, change it around. So, and change this a bit. This. And in this case, I want to target headers, so I'll just do that. I want to target headers, again, the name, the casing needs to be snake. Now, already created two rules. The next thing that I can do is, one problem that users had while creating these style guides was really testing them out. So while you're creating this rule, you want to also try out if it's working out fine or not. I have this OpenAPI here, which has some issues that I probably want to tackle, like query parameters not being camel case. I can go into this debug mode, paste this OpenAPI here, and you'll see that the errors that there are in the OpenAPI for this particular rule are being shown. So this shows me that this rule that I've written for query parameters being camel case works fine. Same goes for the headers. There's a problem in there with headers being camel case. So headers not being snake case. So it's not showing up here. Like, let's change this to a snake case. This should go away. There's probably more, but. All right. So yeah, this debug mode basically helps you play around with rules that you've created. Another example is the rules that we give you by default, the ones that Stoplight provides. So one is like your server or host should not have a trailing slash. We already have one there. If I remove it, this should go away. So you can try out the rules that are there. If you don't want to use some of these rules that Stoplight provides, you can change the severity for them. So say I do want folks to put in the trailing slash, I can disable it. So what's next? Once I've created these couple of rules, I can go ahead and publish. Once I click publish, it's gonna give me the screen where I can write a chain set of sorts. So for users who are actually using this using the style guide, they'd get this message once you're updating these styles. So let's say I've added 2 rules and I publish this. So now that this style guide is published, the next step would be for you to socialize it internally in your company. And for that, we have created this documentation view for the style guide. Any rules that have been added to the style guide would show up here. And you can share this with your with people in your company, and they should be able to see what the style guide does. And once they're ready to use it, comes the part of actually consuming the style guide. What I'll do next is I'll create an API project now. So let's say there's a consuming project. Now I'm an API designer who wants to start designing APIs in this workspace. And there's already a style guide that has been published. Once I create an API project, you are already aware with this UI. I'll just add a new API here, just so that we have that. And next, I go into the styles view. Now, the default style guide, the Stoplight style guide, is enabled by default, but there has been a new style guide that's been published by the program manager. What I can do is stop using the default one and start or enable this one. If I want to look at the docs, I can click the preview button and look at what the style guide does before actually using it. Let's say I know I want to use the style guide. I enable it, and it should have all the rules that the Stoplight style guide gives by default. If there were any changes made by the program manager, that appear here, but there are also the new rules that we have created, like query parameters being camel case or header parameters being snake case. And now if I go to my API designing, so let's say I add a query parameter and I do not make it camel case, it should start appearing here. Same goes for a header. Not snake case, and it should give me an error. I didn't write the message right, but the header parameter being snake case, the query parameter being camel case, it gives you feedback right there. And as your designers design APIs, they'll have this feedback right on the spot. If they fix these things, they get much easier to adhere to standards and promote consistency and quality. One other thing that we potentially need to do is make changes to style guide. So the style guide was published, but now there are some rules that there are some new rules that you want to create, or potentially there are rules that haven't been received well by people in your company and you want to change them around. You can go into the style guide again. So I have the awesome style guide. I can go into it again and make a change. Let's say the server trailing slash rule that we disabled first is now something that we want people to be using, people to be adhering to. So we can go change it into a warning or an error depending on whatever the case is. And I'll now write a useful little change log for people to know what the change that I've made. I've made this change, and now if I go back to this project that I was using the style guide in, what you should get is an update notification. The idea behind the update mechanism was for the program managers or people maintaining those style guides to easily update and maintain the style guide, but not like push changes on users who are using those style guides. So you can easily make changes, and whenever the consumer is ready, so whenever they're ready, they'll get this notification, click update available. If there are multiple updates, they'll have those all of those appearing here. Whenever they're ready, they can click update. The trailing slash should now be a warning, and if I do put a trailing slash in my API, it should give me an error. So this really helps with one, updating style guides, pushing those changes, and whenever somebody's ready, they can update to the latest version of it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the style guide demo that I had. Anna, do you want to take it from here?
Awesome. Yeah, I will take the screen back and I will go through the chat here. I think we answered most questions, but if you have any more, feel free to leave them here and we'll read them out. But so to answer some of the most common questions, if you are currently a pro or enterprise customer at Stoplight and you want to opt in and start having the features available tomorrow, just go ahead and leave your name and what workspace you're associated with, and we'll get you on the opt-in list and turn it on for you tomorrow. We're really excited to be able to do that, and we're glad that we have so many people who are interested. If you are not a pro or enterprise level user, if you are a free user or a starter user, and you want to see what creating a style guide looks like, you can make a new workspace tomorrow, beginning tomorrow, and start exploring the creation features for free. If you want to have the full features of creation, sharing, enabling, and versioning, you will have to upgrade to a pro or enterprise level customer to take advantage of all of the features. But we want to at least give you sort of a sense of how the projects will work at the free level. Let's see, we got some more questions here. Let's see. Let's start with what is the ETA for this to be available on premise? Do we have an ETA for that, Noman, on premise?
So currently we don't. It's going to be first released for SaaS, the SaaS version, and then a follow-up we'll be releasing it for on-prem, but we don't really have a date right now.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated if you're an on-prem, but yeah, this is mostly a SaaS feature for us. Another question from Chris. If we write a style guide based on the default Stoplight one, would any future changes to the default Stoplight guide be included in our new guide? Great question.
Yes, this is a great question. And while I was showing you the update mechanism, I showed you that you'll receive a notification for updates available, and you can update to it whenever you're ready. Same goes for the Stoplight style guide. So it's maintained using the same concepts. We'll make some changes. You'll receive a notification whenever you're ready to incorporate the new rules. You can update to it and then publish your own style guide, which will then have those rules.
I like that. That's helpful. Do you use Spectral in the background? I believe this is all built on Spectral functionality, but go ahead, Naman, is Spectral in the background?
Yes, it's all Spectral in the background. We've built a UI on top of it, added collaboration and really sharing it across the workspace piece to it, but it's run and powered by Spectral itself.
How about having this outside Stoplight in our CI pre-commits? I think there are plans for that. Again,
a great question. And so currently what you'll be able to do is if a project is based on Stoplight and you're pushing it using Git to GitHub, it'll contain these rules. So you can run it in the CI using the Spectral file that is included in that. There are plans to make these style guides available from a URL, so you can use the extends functionality into it for projects outside Stoplight too. But right now, if you have a project inside Stoplight and it's pushed to Git, you should be able to run it in the CI. So that answers Dimitri's question as well. If I already run Spectral on CI in my API spec repos, how will the new style guide feature work with such a setup? I believe our documentation has been updated to include these instructions as well. So Bailey, if you could drop a link to the docs in the chat, that would be helpful. Renee says, could you share the recording afterwards? Absolutely. We'll be emailing the recording to everyone who registered, as well as a few other people who have requested and were not able to join. So you will get a copy of this afterwards. Feel free to share it within your organization too, to people who were not able to register or attend. Hakan asks if you can enable style guide projects for the workspace. Yes. So again, if you missed this earlier and you are a pro or enterprise level customer with Stoplight, we can enable your style guide features tomorrow. So just leave your name and the email and workspace you're associated with, and we will get you into the opt-in list. Easy as that. Let's see. Looking good, looking good. Bailey put the docs in the chat.
absolutely check those out. We may have a few more updates tomorrow to that documentation, but you'll see the updates when those are merged. But keep that bookmarked, and that should help you out. Andreas asks, does this functionality support custom functions as Spectral does?
It will. So that is going to be a fast follow-up to this release. Custom functions are not going to be the part of the first release. We are using it for our own style guides because it does use custom functions, but for anybody else, it's going to be a quick follow-up, and we're going to release functionality for you to use custom functions.
And when we mean fast follow, we're working the next couple of sprints to do some updating on some features that are trailing. But when those features are available, including custom functions, we will alert everybody who's using style guides and everybody who wants to. So you'll get notification when those are available. Absolutely. Can there be different style guide projects used by different projects within the workspace? Yes.
Yep. So you can have multiple style guides enabled on a single project. You can have multiple style guides published for different projects using different style guides. So the idea could be you can create a style guide for design, a style guide for security, and apply it to different projects depending on if they're external or internal. So you could really group them according to the kind of rules that you're creating.
Yeah, we're really particularly thinking about verticalization. You know, if you are a finance company, if you are a healthcare company, there are different rule sets that you need for each of your, individual things that you have to adhere to in your industry. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible to give you more opportunities to use style guides for your industry as well. Let's see. So thanks. Thinking about how we could migrate our Spectral setup to this. That's a great question. If you have an account manager, definitely reach out. We can maybe schedule some time with the product team if you need help to migrate your current Spectral usage, because we know it can be kind of a change, right? To go from Spectral to a more form-based experience. We want to help you out there. Does Stoplight Studio, both web and local apps, support style guides? So this is, does the desktop version work? I think we lost him on. This is primarily a web project version. I think we lost him. Yeah, it is web projects, and so Stoplight platform, but I'm not sure what the ETA is if we're going to support a desktop version, but we'll get that information to you. Noah, do you know if we're supporting desktop with this?
And Noah can only answer, I think, via chat because he's not leveled up to a panelist. So might have to give him a sec there.
He's a fast typer. I've seen him type.
We do have a question on if you can import current Spectral rule sets as code.
Yes, absolutely, you sure can. So in the first section you saw where you go to add a style guide project, right there on the left, import from Spectral. So if you already have Spectral rule sets, it's just as simple as importing the code. So that should get you started pretty quickly too. Before we close it out, I am going to do one last call for anybody who's interested in opting in. If you already have a pro or enterprise level account, leave your information in the chat and we'll get you opted in tomorrow. If you do not, if you have a free or starter account, go ahead tomorrow and create a new workspace and you'll be able to test out some of the creation functionality. But if you want to have the full functionality, you will need a pro or enterprise level account. So we're very excited to have this. I am thrilled to be able to share this with you in this webinar. We will send the recording afterwards. I will leave the chat open for a few more minutes for questions and to add your name to the opt-in list. But thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Thank you, Noman, who unfortunately had technical issues, but he did a great job demoing, and we're really excited to be able to share style guide projects with y'all. So thanks very much.
And we got a couple more questions coming in here. We'll try to answer those in the chat as I grab the last of you guys. All right, I think I got all of you guys. If there's anyone else, please plop your information in the chat and we'll make sure you are on the list. Otherwise, we'll be sending out a recording afterwards and the documentation link in case you missed that. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.